Welcome to Founders Friday. This is a tell-all for everyone that touches the revenue pipeline at their company. We invite experts who are responsible for driving revenue to share their experiences with the goal to both educate as well as to entertain. Remember to share your secret sauce, keep your responses punchy, and let's have some fun with this. My guest today is Ian Hutchinson, VP of Sales at DuploCloud. Ian has built a 10+ year career in B2B sales at companies like Salesforce and Vidyard and IBM, and now, of course, at DuploCloud. Ian, thank you for joining us for this Founders Friday webcast with us today.
Thanks, Asim.
So, Ian, you held a variety of roles at several tech companies, some very large ones like Salesforce and some early stage startups like the one that you're at now. Can you share a little bit about your career trajectory and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I think my trajectory is reasonably common. I started as a BDR at IBM, grinding, making 60 phone calls a day. There was an old school phone that tracked how many phone calls you had made. I then jumped over to a startup as the first sales hire, scaling it from 0 to 10 million at Vidyard. Learned a lot about product market fit, about the importance of marketing. We hired a number of smart, awesome people from Salesforce. So I decided to go over to Salesforce and learn what an engine looks like, operating at a much larger scale, doing 10 million a quarter, as opposed to 10 million over 4 years. And now back building a company from the ground up again.
Awesome. Huge respect for BDRs and SDRs who are watching this. I've been doing that part of my job over the past year or so as an early stage company founder, is to effectively be calling and reaching out to people. So I'm hoping to follow in your footsteps here in the sales capacity. Now, DuploCloud, tell us a little bit more about the company. The company builds itself as DevOps as a service, but for those of us that are not familiar with what that exactly means, tell us a little bit about what the company does.
Yeah, it's a product used by development teams, self-hosted in AWS, Azure, and GCP, and used to automate cloud operations. It integrates security and compliance, which can be a significant amount of work, particularly for early stage organizations. Yeah, looking to make it even easier for organizations to build and go to market with new products.
Got it. And you've been with Duplo, I think, right from its very early days. Could you share the origin story for the company and how it all came about?
Yeah, and I'll say that in my experience, the first million in ARR is by far and away the hardest. DuploCloud is really interesting in that by the time I met them, they were at about 700K in ARR. And it was 4 engineers. They had 0 sales, 0 marketing, entirely customer funded, which is certainly caught my attention. They were getting 1 referral a month, and might not close it that month, but then would close it the next month. So they were expecting to bring on 6 new customers a year. And we had a conversation around, I guess, the first sales hire and really what that would look like. The rest is sort of history.
Got it. Very cool. And tell us a little bit about who's your ideal target customer profile and who's the persona that you're typically selling into.
Yeah, we work with the, as I said, development teams. So VP engineering, CTO, a technical co-founder at an early stage company, and fundamentally any sort of application-driven dev team, typically operating in B2B where security and compliance is in scope, is who we talk to.
Got it. So, I see obviously a lot of engineering organizations that we interact with, and they tend to build out their own DevOps functions at some stage of their maturity as a company. So what's the advantage of leveraging DuploCloud and sort of outsourcing the DevOps function to Duplo?
Yeah. So, I mean, jumping in to this world was a huge learning curve for me. And I think one of the things I've realized is that DevOps as a concept is really about, bringing IT and engineering together and supporting developers to be able to iterate, get feedback on their products, so on and so forth. And fundamentally, DevOps engineers is a bit of an ironic job title in that role done in its purest form, and a lot of the Bay Area companies really are going to automate that role. And that's what DuploCloud's all about. And it comes down to a build versus buy decision on whether or not that's, do you have the expertise in-house to build out cloud automation, which does get a little more complex when security and compliance is in scope. And so for early stage companies, they just don't have the headcount to dedicate to building out this automation. And it's not an area where I see organizations just have to reinvent the wheel time and time again and spend this much time and effort on. We think in the future it's going to be easier and easier.
So if I got this correctly, you're taking essentially what has been an in-house function that needs to be automated, and you're providing a combination of automation plus some sort of augmenting it with some engineers that can act as your DevOps resource in the early days of a startup. Is that the right fair way to think about it?
Yeah, it's an interesting business model, because we charge a fixed monthly fee, just like any other sort of software SaaS vendor would be. But a lot of our customers tend to lean on us for ad hoc questions as things come up. So it's DevOps as a service with 24/7 support behind it. And you're absolutely right. I think that our biggest competitor is doing it in-house or paying consulting companies on an ongoing basis.
Got it. Okay, now let's shift gears. I want to bring the conversation to your sales team and your sales process so we can learn from that. So tell us a little bit about what the sales process looks like from your perspective, and what are some of the third-party data sources that you tap into to identify potential prospects, and what sort of that early stage of the funnel look like from inside Duplo looking out?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying, DuploCloud is fundamentally a need. When we talk to organizations, it becomes very quickly apparent whether there is DevOps work to be done or security and compliance requirements that need to be met, and that simply put aren't there. So that's the good news. It leads to very short deal cycles. The hard part is timing and trust. If an organization is not running production workloads, is not at a point where they have a lot of this work to be done, it's not something that they're going to invent. Developers don't want more projects for the sake of more work. The flip side of that is if this work has already been done, it can very easily be seen as, yeah, this would be great if I knew about it a year ago. Mm-hmm. A lot of this is rework. And so with that in place, referrals, marketing, those are very heavy areas that we invest in. And from an outbound perspective, we can look at data like funding, whether or not they're hiring for this type of talented skill set. We can look at the number of developers and expertise in-house already, and their industry. There are a ton of tech startups across the U.S. So it's a large TAM. It's really trying to find them at the right time and establish the trust.
Got it. So I think one of the things that we talked about as we started to engage with you in our early days is that you're starting to think about how do you leverage product usage data from customers that are actually using your platform. And could you share a little bit more about that as far as what brought that need about and how are you leveraging that data today?
Yeah, so this was this was the first, what I would call non-SaaS product that I've worked with. So all of our software installs in our customers' cloud environments. And to that, we had literally zero data coming from our product. And the two things that we really wanted to put in place was we had an ever-growing number of users that we knew from talking to our customers, that they were adding more developers into the platform, but we didn't know who these users were. And so we needed a way to communicate, enable, message feature announcements, and product information, as well as track when they do move on to a new company. We didn't know which users were leaving, and there were all sorts of individuals who were secret DuploCloud advocates that we had never spoken with. So that was one thing we wanted to untap, and the other is more on like the product usage metrics. Our scaling mechanism is based on the number of nodes or virtual machines that the customer is managing through our platform. And we weren't tracking that from an upsell perspective, because we were focused on new logo acquisition more than upselling into our customer base. But that was shifting as we grew.
Got it. So, tell me a little bit more about how your team uses customer usage data or internal data sources around how your product's being utilized, whether that's to drive new logo acquisition or to drive conversions or upsells. Just sort of a little bit of what are the kinds of use cases and which part of the organization gets involved, and whether that's the marketing sort of the end of the funnel or the pre-sales sales part of the funnel or the post-sales customer success part of the funnel. So just kind of map the use cases to different parts of the organization and how you're leveraging that data today.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it starts with customer onboarding and customer success, looking at what they have done in their first day, first week with the product. It moves into, I will call ongoing customer support and operations. They're a year into the platform. Are they doing something substantially new for the first time, building an AI ML pipeline and using new services on AWS, which then of course has implications on sales from an upsell perspective, alliances from a partnership perspective with the cloud providers. There's all sorts of funding programs and credit programs that you can get when you're using some of these managed services. And we like to flag that so our customers can get the credits and so that the cloud providers are happy seeing that the customers are able to more easily use these managed services with the support of DuploCloud. From a marketing perspective, it flags customers that are ripe for a case study based on their usage. From an engineering perspective, we can see which areas of the product organizations are using, and that's a bit of a newer one for us. Is going full cycle and leaning into okay, what parts of the product need more visibility across our users.
Got it. And Ian, could you share a little bit about what your internal tech stack looks like from a CRM perspective, from a product analytics perspective, et cetera, just to orient our audience here for what are the different internal data sources that you're looking to connect?
Yeah, so I mean, the DuploCloud VM is installed in each individual cloud account within our customers' organizations. So this could be multiple DuploCloud VMs per customer. That calls back thanks to MRSA support. We have that data organized, I believe, in Snowflake under the hood, which then goes into a BI tool, Salesforce, and Slack as being the main sort of, I would say, business users, or the way the overall company interfaces with the data is all through a BI tool, Salesforce, and Slack.
Got it. And in terms of the specific use cases and what's kind of the potential upside that you realized from leveraging MRSA, could you share some metrics or data that would help other folks that are kind of thinking about the same problem, help to start to build a business case around why MRSA?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're in a SaaS world in technology, it shouldn't be that new of a concept to use product metrics to drive your company. I think at Salesforce, they talked at length about putting the customer at the center of everything that you do. And I think I look at MRSA as being similar to DuploCloud, a need. You are going to need insight into how your customers interact with your product. It simply comes down to a build versus buy, similar to what we were talking about in the context of DuploCloud. I think the benefits that you get from putting your customer at the center of what you do, selfishly as a sales leader, I think they're very short term. Upsell 40% of our customers were over their limits, and we needed to flag for upsell when we set up MRSA. I think from a cross sell as organizations leave and go to other organizations. But I think the bigger picture is from a customer experience perspective, from a customer health perspective. Your engineering team, your customer success team, you can all align on that. There are organizations who have been, a month into our contract and haven't done anything. And that's something that you should absolutely flag. Because if you're going to be customer obsessed, if you're going to be successful as an organization, you want to put your customer at the center of all this.
Yeah, so no, that's great. So I kind of heard two areas. One, in your example, one where customers are signed up but haven't onboarded or activated yet, so accelerating that part of the process. And then the second, of course, is you called out the upsell part of the process where customers have already established a relationship with you, but there's opportunity to expand that relationship through an upsell process. Is that fair?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, what you're doing is, if you're delivering customer value, your lifetime value of the customer goes up, the churn goes down. The engineering can build a better product because they get more data from their users. Marketing can better identify, like the wheel, it just feeds itself.
Yeah.
And so, the value that MRSA brings is always going to be a weird thing to quantify, because to me, these are actions we were going to take regardless of whether we chose you as a partner. It's just how much time and effort we had to put into it ourselves, and ultimately as a partner, areas you were able to guide us in terms of how to do this the right way the first time. Got
it. Now, we've been lucky that both you and your founder, Venkat, have been pretty active in giving us feedback on MRSA in the early days of the product and what to build and how you're going to consume that internally and so on. As you kind of look ahead, what are some of the capabilities you can think of that you'd like to see us invest in?
Sure, and I think one of the reasons I love working at small companies is every year my job feels different. The things we're doing, I can't imagine what this is going to feel like a year from now. But when I look at our relationship with MRSA and our relationship with our customers, there are two things I definitely know is we're going to have more customers and more data to look at, and we're going to have more people at DuploCloud to be able to look at that data. I think it's you don't know what you don't know, and it's the time and energy that we haven't had someone dedicated to the MRSA project. I think is one of the things that we don't have a data analyst internally. We don't have someone who is focused on product metrics. And I certainly see that as being a hire that we make down the road.
Got it. Great. So Ian, you've obviously built a very successful career in B2B sales. For folks that are just starting out as SDRs or BDRs, a year or two out of college, what kind of advice would you have for folks that are in your shoes from 10 years ago as they think about sales today?
Yeah, I think I empathize, I sympathize. I think the good news is you've chosen an awesome career. I love sales. I love B2B tech. I'm glad I made my way into it. I think it is a really tough job. And if I were to give you advice that is uniform regardless of what your product does, I would say spend time where your customers and prospects are. If you can get in front of them at events, if you can, the Slack channels, the Discord channels, the forums, different types of people spend their time in different places. But there's a universal truth that if you're around them, it is hard to screw up. You'll adopt their language, you'll understand their problems, so on and so forth. And then the other is make your product easier to find, learn about, use, and buy. I think more and more the traditional sort of, cold calling, for example, that I was doing 60 dials a day. I don't answer my phone when unknown numbers are there. I think the sensitivity that people have to like unsolicited emails and emails has gone way up, which ultimately means that you have to understand how your prospects learn and hear about new products and new tools, and you have to make it easier to have that happen, and for organizations to want to talk to you. I'm going to be honest, it's a difficult thing, especially at a very early stage company. That first $1 million in revenue is hard. And from there, I think, put your marketing brain on and put your customer brain on, and spending time with your prospects and your customers will certainly help you do that. Great.
Ian, thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed this conversation. And I know you can be reached on LinkedIn. And as always, we'd love to hear from folks that have any thoughts on either MRSA.ai or how data can improve your overall customer experience and help you drive sales. So give us a call at www.mrsa.ai, and you can find Ian on LinkedIn or at DuploCloud.com. Thank you so much for your time today, Ian.
Thanks for having me, Asim. Take care.